Well, let's begin. This is Wednesday, May 10th. It's the 8th meeting of the Boise Public Library Board of Trustees in fiscal year 23. And let's start with a roll call, please.
Lemons, here. Magnuson. Pantera.
Here.
Rush.
Here.
Plenty.
Here.
4 board members present, Magnuson absent. Oh, they'll just join.
Okay, great. And Jessica, are there any introductions for today?
Thank you, Brian. In the room that we'll be presenting later are some staff members that you have not had the pleasure yet of meeting. We've got Tali Gerlach from our collection development team, and then Michaela Britson from our youth services team. And I think you remember Erin Bernal, who's online, who'll be summer reading, and Sean Wilson is here. So we've got a great group.
Okay, welcome everyone. And there are no communications this morning that I'm aware of. Is anybody aware of anything I'm not?
No.
Okay. The first item on the agenda, the action item, is the minutes, approving the minutes of the April 12th meeting. Anybody who's reviewed the minutes care to make a motion?
I will move to approve the minutes of the April 12th board meeting.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. That takes us to the consent agenda. And I'm going to request that item B, the financial report, be pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion and a separate vote. I just have one question. There was an item on the maintenance and operations budget. It's accounting unit 3088. Its name is administration, and it indicates we've consumed 70% of the year's budget at the 50% point in the year. And I don't know if that's just the way the cash flow worked out and it's to be expected, or whether this is unexpected, and wanted to get some input on that and understand what it looks like, whether we'll make the number or not at the end of the year.
Okay, Brian, I can answer that question. And actually this will refer back to a discussion we had in January that was about the same accounting unit. And you may remember at that time it had a large encumbrance, and that is related to how the city and the library budget for indirect costs. So that was a larger encumbrance at that time. We have been spending towards it, and we do consider it routine. And because of the work that finance does behind the scenes on the indirect and the encumbrance and how that gets paid out, we'll watch it, but we don't have any concerns with it.
Okay, very good. That's the only question I had. Does anyone else have any questions about the finance report? All right. I move that we approve the finance report, and the payment of bills, there were no questions about. I think we can have a vote on both of them at the same time. I looked at the payment bills and it all looked routine, nothing unusual. Can we get a motion on approving? I just moved. I would like to move again. For the payment of bills and payroll, and for the financial reports, that we approve them as the documents currently are represented.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. That takes us to our reports. And the first report is from Jill Johnson, President of the Friends of the Boise Public Library.
Morning. I just have a couple of quick things to update you on. Last weekend, we started taking donations on Saturdays. We're going to be doing a trial run of that for the first Saturday of the month. We'll be taking donations from 10 to noon to try and capture some of those people who might not be available during the work week when our other donation hours are open. And the second thing was I wanted to thank Emily and Kathy for reaching out to us to start the flow of some of the library's discards back to the Friends. We're thrilled to have those materials coming to us, and we're going to put them to good use and some revenue generation back for the library. So thank you for reaching out for that and for making that work. There's probably still some things we need to iron out, but we're excited to have those materials back in flow.
All right, any questions for Jill? Jill, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
And the next report is from Brian Manship, Chair of the Boise Public Library Foundation.
Good morning. So this month, we don't have a whole lot to tell you. There's not a lot of change from last time. We are continuing to work on our big event of the year, which is our sponsorship of the Boise Comic Arts Festival. There's a lot of fundraising that is needed, and there's a lot of things that are happening, communications as well as discussions with merchants and commercial people and so forth. So we were working on that, but nothing too new at this point, but we're still continuing on. We have had the support and the assistance of Emily Johnson and Josh Chappelle of the library helping us to in some of those efforts to reach out and seek sponsorship. So we really appreciate all the help that they have been providing us as well with even some little bit of training, even as far as how to reach out and help us in our efforts to seek sponsors and so forth. So that is continuing to happen. But other than that, we are nothing is new for this month at all. We're continuing on with those efforts.
And Brian, you were seeking new members. You were in the process of any progress there? Oh, you went on mute.
Brian Manship, you're on mute.
Brian, would you mind starting over again? Somehow you got on mute.
I lost you. You hear me?
Yes, we missed what you said though. Would you mind repeating?
Okay, yeah, sorry about. I do have one that I'm working with, and I'm hoping it's going to come to fruition. It'd be a good asset. So I don't have anyone to announce currently. And then there's a couple others that I'm still working on to see if that is going to be a fit. So I'll know more hopefully in the next week or so, but I will definitely have at least something to report next month.
Sounds like you're making progress. Well done.
Yeah.
I had one other question. In the financial report, there was a summary of gift fund activity. And there was one line item, Boise Public Library Foundation, ASMCA. And I didn't know if that had something to do with comic arts or what, but it was $30,000. So I thought I'd ask about it.
That was the contribution from the foundation to the library from the Allison Clara.
Mary Clara Allison. We'll help you remember that one, Brian.
And that was contributed, this donations that were specifically earmarked for printed materials and books for the library. And that was contributed, I believe, about last month.
Okay. Any other questions for Brian? Brian, thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
The next update is from Library Director Jessica Dorr. Jessica?
Thank you, Board. I'm excited to be sitting here in my Boise Public Library summer reading t-shirt. Want to just invite every member of the Board of Trustees. We'll have our big kickoff of our summer reading and learning on Saturday, May 20th at Jump. We've got two of our staff members who will present more about summer reading and learning, but I wanted to personally extend a welcome for you to join us. And Carrie will send out a note for an RSVP on that. I want to, for those, only Rebecca had the real joy of coming in and seeing the construction zone that is now our front entrance. But so I do hope that those of you who are not able to be here in person get a chance to see, we've got a lot of things happening. We've got Sean Wilson to talk more about that, but our buildings are looking different and we're really excited about that. I do want to give you a heads up on our Hillcrest location. Sometime in June, we will need to close Hillcrest temporarily because we need to do some work on the flooring, and it's all the flooring to get into the building. So we're not able to have any staff on that floor as they're working on it. We don't have an exact date on it. We are trying to do it over the weekend, so it has the minimal impact on services to the public. When we do have that exact time frame, we'll obviously post this on our website, on social media, and on the facility itself. So stay tuned for that. I wanted to give you a quick update on the Board of Trustee opening. The call for applications closed on Monday, and we are waiting to get those applications from the mayor's office. The steps for that review, the first thing that we need to do is confirm eligibility. So Carrie Davis and I will spend some time on the map and verify people's addresses. And then when we do that, then the next step on that is that we will send them to the board president and vice president. And then the board president, vice president, and I will meet to review the candidates and to come up with a short list that we will forward with our recommendations for consideration by the mayor. So we will reach out to Brian and Rebecca separately when we know some of the timing on that. What I would be interested in is having a quick input from the full board on when we need to review the applications. What skill set, experience, background do you think would be complementary to the board members? Have you identified a gap? Are there things that we should really be looking for as we evaluate potential candidates? And then the other question that we'll want to forward to the mayor is, are there things we want the mayor to explore in any interview with those candidates? Last year, if you might remember, those of you that were part of this discussion, advocacy was the question that we really wanted to make sure that the mayor was looking at candidates that would be strong advocates for the library. And clearly that is the skill set we have on our board now. So I would love to just open that up real quick for a discussion about one, is there a skill set we think we should be looking for? And then two, what would you want the mayor to ask potential candidates?
I have a couple thoughts. I wonder if there's somebody out there with some of the sort of IT or technical experience that would be able to have good insight on like apps and websites and some of the things the library is working on in that regard. That's the only skill set specific I can think of. And I think I said this last time too, is I think we always should be mindful of having diversity on the board, whether it's from different neighborhoods, from different professions, from different income levels and backgrounds. So I would again stress that being important.
I second Nikki's feedback on the IT app technical background in particular.
Also echo, I think I had the same thought. I might even add data in there. I know that's something we're looking at with strategic plan, is how to capture metrics and tell the story of impact through data. And so I think anything in that technological or data collection space would be really helpful. Okay.
And I agree with all of that, of course. But I also think the importance for advocacy still. The pressure on libraries is not going away anytime soon. So I'd like to see that as well, that advocacy piece, so that we can be a good team.
I'm not a member. I did have a question. I would like to bring it up between meetings. I apologize for not doing it. Is there also a youth member of the board as well?
That's an option that we have. That was something that was canceled during COVID. And we as a board can talk about bringing that back. My understanding, and I would want to research it because I have never been on the board, or I've never been at the library when there has been a youth board member. It is an option by statute for the library board to have, and I'd be happy to look into it and learn more about how we might be able to add that position if the board is interested.
And I think that would be different than this position. I think there's 6 and then maybe there's an option for a youth appointee. If I'm remembering.
That's true.
2, oh, there's up to 2. And they're non-voting.
You're not,
Correct.
that's my understanding, is they're not voting.
Cool. Yeah, I had meant to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm happy to look into it if you're interested, because I don't know much about it since, as I said, I've heard about it, but have never been here for it. So yeah, we'll add that to a list of things to look into and bring back to the board.
Jessica, I would love to be a part of any of discussion. I work with teenagers all day long, so I would absolutely love to be a part of any piece of that. They, believe it or not, they've got a ton of opinions. I know that might be hard to believe, but they do. I would love to be a part of that.
Jessica, anything else?
I just wanted any questions that we would want to forward to the mayor, other than just based on sort of what we're looking for. Okay, great. I will work on that when we know more about what applicants we'll get to look at. A couple other quick things. I just want to give you a preview of the FY24 budget hearing. First, I want to apologize. There's a misprint in your packet on page 6. The Board of Trustee discussion about the FY24 budget will be on June 14th, not June 7th. That table has the wrong date. It'll be at our June meeting. And then I will also be sending a link later to the FY24 budget workshop that is scheduled for Tuesday, May 23rd. That is the long budget work session with council. It will start very similar to FY23's workshop, where it'll start with a presentation from the mayor's office and the budget office about the budget overview, the approach, the financial position of the city. And then directors from each department will present. And what the department directors will talk about is, what were the investments in 23 and what was their impact, and then what is the request for 24. We've been having some great discussions with the mayor's office as we have some timing issues, as we're getting closer to having a final strategic plan that then will really shape some of our future investments. We're using this time between now and the start of fiscal year to sort of transition that. So you'll see the priorities for 24 that we'll be building on the current fiscal year, and you're going to start to see how it lines into that framework of expanding access, increasing impact, optimizing resources, and measuring value. So you'll start to see how we're transitioning it, but it is very much under construction. I think will be my theme for how we present that. And you'll hear more about sort of what investments we think will give us. We'll continue the work that we've been doing, particularly at this location, and then a jump start into that new framework. And as I said, I'll send you a description. I'll send you a link so you guys can watch it. And I think I will be presenting sometime after lunch. So, hopefully we won't put you to sleep.
They're actually really fun. I think because you get a good snapshot from every single department on what the future might look like. 0 people tuned into it, even though it's a public meeting, which is really important because it's the best opportunity to learn about what different departments have going on. And then the window between that and when it gets approved by council is the best time for the public to actually have input on any changes or adjustments that they may see. So I think it's fascinating.
I think it's fun too. And the themes are really always interesting. One last thing, we have heard and we are aware of that we may have a challenge for getting a quorum for our August meeting. Although we do know that we should be at that point having a new member come in, which hopefully will help with that issue. We're aware of it. We will we have some plans on, we do need to meet monthly by city code, but we can certainly right size that meeting for the people who are here, meaning we could have a very content light meeting that if it's missed doesn't affect the work of the library. So we just want to make sure we've heard, we know we're aware of it, and we will make sure we manage to it as we get closer.
Thank you.
And then finally, there was a last question. I'm going to pull up Sarah Kelly Chase for a question that we got earlier about the safety summit that she attended. So,
Yeah. Okay, hello. I have the privilege of going to Columbus, Ohio at the end of April for Library Journal's first annual safety summit for library staff. They had originally planned it in 2018, plans got set aside, and then COVID. So this was the inaugural one. They were anticipating 150 leaders from libraries across the country. It was social workers, managers, safety specialists. They ended up with 250 people and a wait list. So there's a great need across the country. We had people from Canada there to come together. And a conference in 2018 would have been very different than what we talked about in 2023. So there were lots of discussions about trauma for our communities and our staff, in-house security versus contracted security, connections back with the community. It was really impactful and really exhausting. There was so much to dig into, and it was heartening to know that our colleagues across the country are struggling with the same kinds of challenges, but also a little disheartening. It's just tough out there. I mean, I heard, pressure on libraries. Yes, it's immense from inside and outside right now. So we're actually ahead of the game in many areas. I was proud to be able to say we have our mental health coordinator, we've got in-house security, we're working on better communication between our locations, between staff members and security and all of our partner organizations out in the community when we do have people here experiencing trauma. They're going to do it again next year. They're going to have a bigger venue. They're also hoping to turn some of the sessions from April into webinars this fall. So I'm really hoping we can get a lot more staff involved, but it was really incredible. And I just got the final set of slides from all the presentations yesterday. So my work is cut out for me next week to go through them and figure out which information to share with which groups within the library for everything. So yeah, so it was great.
Any ideas that you thought might be immediately implementable and worthwhile for us?
Honestly, there are a lot of things we already had started in progress that I'm excited to see goes very well in line with things that were suggestions. So I think it's still working on those communication lines with our neighborhood branches. We just started some security teams chats similar to what we're doing here at the downtown library, and already that's been super helpful. We've also started talking about trauma-informed approaches, which that's a buzzword you'll probably hear out in the community in general, just doing leadership through a trauma-informed lens. And so our mental health coordinator, she actually has been working with a book called A Trauma-Informed Framework for Supporting Patrons that was put out by the Public Library Association. We haven't spent much time with it yet, but there are lots of resources out there and things that are bubbling up.
Any other questions from anyone? Well, thank you for your report. I'm glad we sent someone to learn, listen and learn.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, that takes us through the reports. I think, Jessica, was there anything else left?
No, I just wanted to know if anyone had any questions.
Okay, so we'll move on to educational items. And the first one is a update on the summer reading program. And Jessica already introduced our two guests, Michaela Britson and Aaron Bernal. I didn't get titles. I like to specify your titles so that the audience knows who they're hearing from. Michaela, would you start your title?
Yes, so I am a librarian here at Maine in Youth Services.
And Aaron, could we get your title?
Yeah, branch librarian. I'm at the library at Hillcrest.
All right, thank you.
I can go ahead and I'll start. I do have some slides I was hoping to show with the artwork, although Zoom is saying I can't share my screen. So I'm not sure if Carrie can bring those slides up. I think she has them as well. It says host disabled participant screen sharing on my side. So I will just get into my notes and hopefully we can get that artwork up there as we go. But the Boise Public Library Summer Reading Program starts on May 20th this year. I am one of the leads on the summer reading team. My co-lead, Mackie Welsh, works down at the main library and is unable to join us today. So I'll be giving this update. This year, we're going to be using the Collaborative Summer Learning Program theme and artwork again, known as CSLP, which is a nationwide organization. So there's lots of libraries across the country that will have the same artwork. Our in-library decorations this year, so the theme is all together now. And our in-library decorations, party themes, and our t-shirts, which if you can see my t-shirt, I think Jessica has that on, is got lots of flowers on it, got that kind of a 70s vibe. And there you can see some of the artwork now. And then we can go to the next slide. So our key dates that we have coming, we've already started in April. We started reaching out to schools. May 1st, we started all of our in-library and social media promotions. On May 20th will be the official start of summer reading. And that's when we'll have the summer reading and learning celebration, which I'll talk more about in just a moment. On May 25th, all the BPL locations will have their location-specific branch kickoff parties, which would coincide with the last day of school for the Boise School District. So you can go ahead and move on to the next slide. The Summer Reading Learning Celebration, which I just mentioned, this will be our second annual. It's May 20th. It's going to be downtown at Jump. Our planning partner this year is Ada Community Library. We also, though, are having some of our other consortium partners will be attending to promote their summer programs. We'll also have lots of fun stuff going on, music from Boise Rock School bands. There's going to be about 15 or more other organizations that will be sharing opportunities for learning for kids this summer. Last year we estimated about 1,500 people. I'm not really sure how many people actually, there was a lot of people, and we're hoping to have similar turnout again this year. Next slide. So the reading program that will be happening, our goal is to make reading a fun daily habit with the intent to fight summer slide, which occurs for kids, when school is out. The goal is reading focused. So all that anyone has to do in order to participate and earn all of the prizes and incentives is to read. But it is for all ages, even though like kind of the core is that fighting the summer slide for kids. We have it from babies and early readers. Babies are 0 to 2, early readers are 2 to 5. We have our youth, teen, and adult categories as well. For those babies and early readers, we have an increased focus on early literacy activities of read, write, talk, sing, and play, which are the things that parents and caregivers can do with their children every day to help get them ready to read. We'll also be using Beansnack again this year, which is our online tracking software, which patrons can use. However, there is the option to participate offline if people prefer. We'll have custom art paper trackers again that they can hang up on their fridge and keep track of how many days they're reading. All participants will get a book for signing up. They can earn up to 2 more books plus another prize for reading all summer. They'll also be entered into drawings to win additional prizes. So then going on to the last slide, I wanted to share some of the stuff we've already been working on. Obviously, it's a big task. There's lots of things going on at all the locations with the artwork you'll see around. But this was what happened last weekend. If you can't tell, that room on the left side, that is the room that everyone's sitting in right now. I think my face is up on that screen on the far left. This was our big sort. This is some of our prize books. We sorted like 8,850 books last weekend. The other picture is there in admin. There's a picture of the collaboration room next door. So we're spread out all over that area. These books will be headed out to the branches. There'll also be some that will be distributed at our summer learning outreach events, which Michaela will be talking about in a moment. And this actually won't even be all the books. We're still planning to order some more to kind of refill after the first wave goes through. Hopefully our next order won't be quite as involved in this as this one. And if you poke your head over to admin, we've still left it a bit of a mess over there. There's a lot of stuff to still move around. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but if not, I will hand it off to Michaela, who will talk about the summer learning component.
No question, but just expressing my gratitude for the amount of sweat equity you're putting in, but also it's just really exciting. This is a fun time of year. So thank you for your and the team's dedicated work.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Erin. I actually just spent the morning at an elementary school with second and third graders talking about summer reading. And they were very excited and had a lot of really great questions. Super fun. So I'm here today to talk to you very briefly about this grant that we received. It's the ESSER Summer Strategies Grant that we received in the amount of $30,000. And the goal of the grant is to provide improved access to summer learning opportunities for students whose learning was interrupted and affected by COVID-19. Reduced instruction time. And I will just give a quick update on what we've done since October, since we've gotten this grant. 2 of our librarians from the summer reading team attended a national summer learning conference in Washington, DC, and several of us attended an ICFL regional workshop also here in Boise. 4 of our staff have attended monthly building equity-based summers workshops, and we will continue with what they're calling community of practice calls over the next 4 months through the grant. And Emily and Huda and I interviewed and have hired 2 interns who will support our outreach this summer. We're very excited about that. And they will help us with outreach in the parks. So I'll talk about it in a moment. And then also develop their own professional goals as well and have a mentor here at the library that they can work with as well. We have connected with several community partners already as part of this grant, including the Boise School District, Boise Community Schools, the International Rescue Committee, Boise Parks and Recreation, Ada Community Library, and Garden City Public Library. And right now, we're requesting to have several of our summer reading materials translated into multiple languages to meet community members where they are. That will come through. We're also continuing outreach to the parks that offer free lunches this summer. The summer reading team did a great job of establishing that last summer, and we hope to build on this. We'll have more staff to be able to go out to the parks this summer. We're also in the planning stages of developing an outreach program in June and July that will visit these community partner sites, summer school, parks, and a temporary refugee housing facility. We'll be promoting the summer reading program that Erin has talked about, providing books. Some of those books you saw, we'll be giving those away to kids, and then also offering summer learning programming, which will include literacy and STEAM activities. And lastly, this has been a really huge learning process for all of us. I mean, Emily will tell you that. And so we're just hoping to build on this framework we've established in doing this and be able to provide more literacy and learning opportunities for future summers when that summer slide is an issue and reach more kids. So we're just learning a lot and hope to continue developing those community partnerships that we're working on right now. Yes. Questions?
Questions for Michaela?
I have one, and I think I've asked it before, and it's more out of personal curiosity as someone who lives in West Boise and has kids in the West Ada School District. There's a handful of schools in the West Ada District that are in the Boise Public Library District. What does outreach look like there? I believe as a parent, I've usually gotten the Meridian Library's information for their reading program, but technically we're in Boise. So I know that's confusing, but is there outreach to those handful of schools in West Ada, well, Boise?
Right. I'm not sure if Erin would have an answer to that for previous summers, since this is my first summer here. Is Horizon one of those schools in the And West
I know
Windsor is
Houston
still-
Elementary is,
Yes,
Pioneer
okay.
Elementary
Okay.
is, there's just a small handful, I think, I'm not sure how many
Yes,
total.
yes. I'm not exactly sure how we have served those schools or what we've been.
And specifically for the grant, I'll just jump in, specifically for the grant, we are intentionally taking off a smaller bite this summer while we really just figure out what this looks like. We've got interns, which is new for us, the programming is new for us, and partnerships. But truly, the idea is that we will come back next year, reapply, and hopefully expand the footprint. So I think we are keeping it pretty close to home, but it's good for you. Please keep bringing that up, because I think as we talk about it, sometimes we get a little more focused with Boise School District.
Sure.
But it's good for us to remember, sometimes we have to think outside the box a little bit. So, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think next year when we know a little more and can stretch our wings a little further, we'll look this guys in.
And I can add, just in general, we do have a spreadsheet of which locations are closest to which schools. The Cullen Eustick Library will often work with Ada Community and West Ada, and they actually share some spaces. But I would have to look at the actual sheet to see. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can add, I've worked on that sheet before. It's definitely a kind of, since the way that all the districts overlap and none of the maps, of course, line up. The majority of the schools that are West Ada, I think, would be in others. I think there are a couple that Cullen Eustick works with. There's also a lot of Boise School District schools that are covered by Ada Community or Garden City or some of those other libraries. So it's definitely collaborative, and definitely during this whole process, we've been talking to different Ada Community and Garden City, and be like, which schools are you going to, and which schools are we going to, like, to make sure that we are covering our bases. As far as West Ada, I don't know that specifically we've looked at any of the schools this year, but like Emily said, we're kind of intentionally trying to keep it a bit smaller this year, I think.
Any other questions? I think you guys closed the loop on the gift fund activity that I asked about earlier, $30,000. So now we have a complete picture. Thank you.
Bill did a lot with $30,000. That's really impressive.
The ability to hire interns obviously just increases the amount of work we can do, and we're hoping to kind of develop some librarians later on. Working a few angles on that.
All right, we're just a couple minutes behind schedule, pretty close to right on time. We're shifting into old business.
No, Brian, we're not. Sorry, Brian.
Oh, Tully Gerlach, I'm sorry. I have a tendency to skip over agenda items randomly.
You keep me on my toes.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Tully Gerlach. I'm a collection development librarian and acquisitions and technical services here at the library. And Gary, can you bring up our PowerPoint? Today, I'm going to talk to you very briefly about what we call our collection assessment. This is a statistical an analytic tool that we use every year to determine the health of our collections, trends in our collections, help us with budgeting, help us with selection. So we've been doing this. Let's jump ahead to. So we pull just tons of data out every year on the calendar year, dump it into a series of spreadsheets we've built. And like I say, use this information, we study it and use it for all these various areas of analysis. Let's go to the next slide, please, Carrie. So we've identified 6 major data points that we really concentrate. We pull more, but these are the 6 that we think really are the most important. I think most of these should be self-explanatory, but if anyone has a question, just ask. I will talk about turnover. That's the one that's the most jargony. Turnover is basically a metric that determines how often things in your library are moving in and out, turning over. So in a library like ours, where most things check out for 4 weeks, like a perfect turnover rate would be 12. Normally, library standards, depending on the collection, a 6 is good, a 7 is good. Even a 4 or a 5 can be good, depending on the collection. For things that check out more often or for shorter time periods, like DVDs, video games, sometimes you can get higher turnover rates well past 12. 12 is just kind of the median. That's sort of that number fluctuates a lot. It's very manipulable. So that no single one of these data points is the data point. This is a holistic analysis. We look at everything. We look at any one of these in light of all the others. They all have to be kind of balanced against each other instead of against each other. So let's see what that looks like on the next slide. So this is everything at all locations for the past 6 years. Now, I'm just talking about physical items. We are not doing this for the ebooks, the audio stuff. We really can't do it. There's a lot of problems with trying to do that. I think the problems with e-materials have been discussed before. This is for our physical materials, everything in the buildings that checks out at all locations. So over the past 6 years, you can see that, we average around 300,000 items total. That stays pretty stable. We have a really solid turnover rates. So for system-wide, 2018 and 2019 are baseline years. Those are just our very common years. 17 is a little bit skewed because Bound was not open the entire year. So we've got a little bit of dip in numbers. For every other location, 17 is another baseline year. So when we take out Bound, we really do look at those 3 years kind of as our benchmarks, really. They're really good, solid years. You can see that we're getting almost 100% of the items are checking out in a calendar year. Things only stick around on the shelf about 4 months. So I think we do really well. Obviously, 2020 was we took a hit, but I would like to point out that if you look at our percentage of items out for 2020, we still got 3/4 of our items out. 77% of things were still checking out of our buildings, which I think that's really great considering everything that happened. I think it's a testament to all the work the staff put in to keep the locations open when we could, to get materials to people for curbside. And so you can see that we're rebounding. We're kind of on our way back towards our 18, 19 levels, and we're getting there. 2021, we're creeping back up and we're doing great in 2022. And I feel pretty confident that 2023 is going to look more like what we saw back in 2018, 2019. So again, this is everywhere, everything. Once you start breaking it down, you see some differences in some of these numbers. So let's jump ahead. I think this just kind of shows the locations for this year. So this allows us to kind of see our comparable locations. Colon, Ustick, and Bound are about the same size. Hollister and Hillcrest are about the same size. So this helps us make sure, are the collections about the same, especially considering how often things check out, how are the locations doing. Maine is always going to have slightly lower statistics just because there's more stuff here. Bigger the numbers get in this, the smaller, or not smaller, but yeah, the lower the statistics can look. But when you break it down to smaller numbers, like, you can see at Colon Ustick is up at 88% of items out for last year. Maine is at 83, but again, we have 200,000 items versus just about 39 out there. So this gives us kind of an overall view of what's going on everywhere. If we look ahead, we can kind of boil it down. We can see what it looks like with individual collections. So if we could grab the next slide. So for example, picture books at Hillcrest. I'm glad we have a Hillcrest person here with Aaron. So we have one of these sheets for every single collection at every location in the building. There are hundreds. So for example, with children's books, we have picture books, we have J fiction, we have J series, youth graphic novels, et cetera, et cetera. We have adult fiction broken down into genres. The nonfiction is broken down into its Dewey classes. At Maine, it's broken down into sub-Dewey classes. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of sheets for every single collection. And we do look at all of them. I look at all of them. I have to. So picture books at Hillcrest. This is just a great representative collection. I would point out that so if we look at 17, 18, 19, we can see that picture books at Hillcrest are just doing amazing. Great turnover rates. Pretty much every single thing on the shelf out there is checking out. I will say this is pretty much how it is for almost all children's collections. Actually, children's collections do incredibly well. They do the best of any of our collections. We can also see in 2020, I mean, it really was not that big of a drop. Still 82% of picture books managed to check out just from Hillcrest. In fact, and that's, again, indicative across locations in 2020. The reason I think 2020 stayed above 75% items out is because of youth collections. They buoyed up all the statistics for that year. So youth collections do really great. we can see in 2021, it starts to come back, but we can also see that if you look at the top row, that collection steadily grew. And it grew from 2020 into 2021. We got our rebound, got back up to 89%, which frankly, when you're looking at 98% as your top 89%, so that's a fantastic number, but it's kind of okay when we're succeeding so well. It's the perils of success.
Quick question.
Yes, certainly.
What's the difference between turnover and average number of checkouts?
Average number of checkouts. Turnover is more like I say, it's a number, it's a sense of how often things are actually moving in and off the shelf. Average number of checkouts, that data, that number for us gives us a sense of how beat up the items might be. So if most things in this collection, so you could see like in 2017, most picture books had checked out 30 times, which means most of those picture books were looking pretty ragged at that point. In 2022, you can see that we've got it down to 18. So for us, that's more of a collection of how much use does the collection have, how potentially battered is it, how do we want to refresh it? Whereas turnover is just more like how often are things moving in and off of the shelf. So again, we kind of have to look at all these data points together. Along with that same thing, whereas we got the average number of checkouts down to 18, you can see the age at the bottom there by acquisition and copyright went down considerably as well. So that collection is about 5 years old in 2017. Now in 2022, it's only 3 years old. So it's going to look a lot better. And the books aren't going to be as ragged and especially a kid's book. You get 30 checkouts on a kid's book, a picture book, that thing's going to be looking pretty rough. So we grow this collection through 22, so there's kind of a red flag here. We see that even though the collection grew to the largest it's been in 2022, the statistics stayed flat. We only got 90% out. Turnover rate's about the same, even though we still had 1,000 more checkouts. This 1,000 more checkouts did not keep pace with the size of the collection. So what this tells us is that we've topped out the size of this collection with the available space that it has. With the space that we have at Hillcrest for children's picture books, we can see that the ideal number is right around 1,200. We don't really want to go above that because even though technically we have the most single checkouts we've ever had, we're still not moving as many items out versus what's still there. The shelves are too full. It's too big. I think from this data, I could say that if we were able somehow to expand the space for picture books at Hillcrest, we would see the statistics jump. It's not about the amount per se, it's about the space that we have. So with the space we have at Hillcrest, we do need to keep that right around 1,200 or so we can keep those high percentage rates out and those high turnover rates. We don't want to see it just stay flat, especially well below what we've benchmarked, around 97%. So we do need to shrink this collection a bit, which I think Hillcrest is happy to have that many picture books, but we want the statistics to be better back what we're seeing in 2018 to 2019. If things change,
confirm.
Yes.
Yeah, I love seeing as many titles as we have, but the shelves are very full. So
yeah,
I think it makes it harder to circulate because the shelves themselves aren't as attractive once they get to that size.
Exactly. And I think a lot of us who worked in libraries for years, we know this intuitively, but now we have proof that when the shelves are overfull and they're stuffed too much, you're going to lose checkouts. It's just not browsable. It's overwhelmed. So we do this with every collection. So this is part of how we work with these numbers. We see our targets. Has the collection gotten too big? Now we have kind of a plan for what we need to try and do here at Hillcrest. Want to keep it new. We want to keep the average number of checkouts down. We do need to dial this back and get this a little bit smaller so we can perform a lot better. So next slide. This is just another look at another page that we have on these data sheets. This is where all the information gets crunched. You can see we have a lot of other data points we look at besides those main 6. So we have a lot of ways into this. Also, there's a third sheet where every single item in that collection is sitting in a spreadsheet. So we can go in there and we can actually look at the things that are checking out. We can look at what things are checking out the most, see if we can spot patterns. We can go back and look at everything we added in the prior year, make sure is that stuff checking out? Are we making the right choices? Is the stuff we added, is it not checking out as good as the stuff that was old? A lot of ways to just dig into this data, and this is now the expectation for our team is that we go in, we study this, can make benchmarks, we can set goals, and we can track our own progress or success, or even not failure per se, but if we're not keeping up a collection, we're going to be able to see that, and we're going to be able to go in there and figure out what we may be doing wrong. Next slide. Now, again, I said this doesn't cover e-materials, but we threw the statistics out there. Yes, we can see that circulations on Overdrive just trending up. This is for last year. Yeah, it's just going up still. Unique users growing. So we often speak of Overdrive. It's almost like its own separate branch as far as just the number of unique people that are going to it and obtaining the materials through Overdrive. Again, that's positive that people are using materials, but the nature of Overdrive and the way these collections work, the cost, it's also problematic. But that's a whole other issue. Next slide, please, Carrie. The other thing we try and do is we look at these checkout rates and we try and match up our budgets too. So you can see that, for example, youth physical items, which check out, like I said, like crazy, they're about 32% of our overall budget, 39% of circulations. That's close, but that tells us, we could probably be putting more money into over an adult physical. That's kind of right on 30% of budget, 33% of circulations. You can also see though that even though that youth has more like single circulations, higher percentage, that's a smaller budget. So we have been over the years trying to push more and more money into youth, and this shows that that's something that's necessary. So we really track this close, try and keep these numbers, keep them synced up. And this also makes sure that regardless of what happens with the budget, if we have our materials budgets go down, or if they go up, or if they just stay flat, we still have this to kind of keep us guided so we can still maximize what budget we have for the best result. And I think there's one last slide talking about digital resources, databases. We spent $185,000 for 25 resources last year. The top tier, the news bank, the Idaho Statesman, I would say that is not current issue. That is the Idaho Statesman Historical Archive, or as you could say, classic Statesman. O'Reilly, which is computer technology manuals, and then Heritage Quest genealogy. And that is a very brief overview of a very deep, complicated subject. If there's any questions now, I'm happy to answer. If anyone would like to follow up and learn more about this or dig deeper, if there's specific collections that you have a personal interest in, you'd like to know more about, we have this information. We're happy to share it. Just feel free to follow up with me. I can answer or try to answer anything you might be interested about this.
Well, I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
You alluded to a lot of problems with analyzing the digital media, and I'm not familiar with that previous discussion. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, yes, the main problem with that is we don't own any of that information, and we can't just get to it. Our information, all the information we have for physical items, that's ours. We can pull it out when we want, how we want, and we can manipulate it the way we want. For the Overdrive stuff, we have to go to them and ask for data. They give it to us. We get what we get.
So they don't, I would think they would have a pretty extensive reporting service tied to the billing.
They do offer, so Phil, I'm going to jump in. They do offer certain things, but they intentionally do not share all of the data with us if they could. We do have a group of people that's working to try to address that nationally. So the Urban Library Council is putting together a group. We've been asking for the data because they have a ton of usage information that we just can't have access to. So we've been asking for it for years, and we're trying to figure out a way to push harder on that to try to make sure that we get it at some point. But still at this point, we're being stonewalled there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
This data is best produced annually. How long does it take to prepare it after the close of the year?
Actually, the amount, what takes the longest is building the container sheets that crunch all the data. That I usually start doing that in the fall. Takes me it takes about 4 months to build those things. I start in September. Once we have those things built, dumping the data into them, we usually can get that done in about 3 days.
Does any of your data that we looked at make its way into the Idaho Commission for Libraries annual report in December?
We generally tend to pull different data points than the assessment for the annual report. There is some of it translates, but not much. What the state is interested in is less of what we're interested in. We're much more in the weeds and micromanaging the collections for our communities, where the state just wants to see how we're spending the money and kind of the higher viewpoints. So, yeah.
Okay, and we unfortunately didn't get this as a pre-read because I find it very interesting. Where can I find the file? Is it downloadable from the?
Unfortunately, then that's something we're working on right now too. The way that thing is built, because it has all those past year information in it, all those sheets, and that's why it takes so much time to build them, are pointing back to previous year's sheets. So it's all active data, so they all have to sit in the same file system. They can't be moved, and unfortunately, I started building it in our ATS on the iDrive. It has to stay there. So we're working on ways to get those sheets out. You can resave them as static information sheets. We're starting to put some on the staff drive. Again, if there's something specific you're interested in, we could certainly save a file and get it to you, find a place. I don't know if there's a place where the board can access files or anything like that, but we could certainly make some of the high level stuff available to you. We have those files actually already. We can just save those, email them, whatever's the easiest way to get info to the board. And then beyond that, it's kind of by request. So if you're like, I'm really interested in the science fiction collections because I love sci-fi, how are they doing? Then we can get that too.
Okay, well, it's fascinating information. I'm just more interested in becoming more familiar with it, better familiar with it.
Great. That's good to hear. We want people to see this. We want to share it. So we definitely want this out there.
All right,
I'll
Tully,
just
thank you
add,
very much.
I think Tully sort of undersold his role in this. He was frustrated with not being able to get the data from the tools that were available through our vendors, so he built this. And that this point about we have a collection that we have confidence that it is the community's collection because we see how it circulates. So that bit about having some of these targets about trying to have 100% of the collection circulate is really the goal that we have, so that we know that this community, that our collection reflects the community because the community is constantly using it. I think it's the piece that's really important. And then the analytics of what size should be the collection. And then how do we make sure as they pick up on trends sometimes before anybody else, like, hey, we're seeing something at this location. What is that? What is the collection moving? Tell us about how that community is changing. So hugely valuable for us. And like I said, Tully should get, and his team that he's worked with should get all the credit for creating a tool that is really, I think, leading library.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's wildly important, not only for us to understand just the operations and how you are doing this, and it is deeply fascinating.
Good.
The wonk in me is very excited by all of what you're doing. But also thinking just from a broader advocacy standpoint as well, to be able for us to have this information and broader understanding that people are heavily utilizing these collections, they are appropriate, and that they have been well considered in their establishments. I think that feels really good as a backing of information for me to know as I'm thinking about future advocacy points I may have to make about collections. So thank you for that, because it's not just the immediacy of your day-to-day work, but the bigger, broader vantage point of how you all are being so intentional in the way that you put these collections together. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's good to hear.
All right, Tully, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Great, thanks.
we're a little behind schedule now, so I hope no one's got a time limitation. We're moving on to old business, and the first topic is Boise Public Library policy review focused on collection development. And to present is Library Acquisitions and Technical Services Senior Manager Kathy Stalder.
Hi, so we just figured we would just tag on since we were going to have our great assessment presentation. So these documents really are meant to be a foundation of why we do what we do and how we do it on a level that is accessible for the community when they read through. So this year I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive. I know we've looked at some of the pieces kind of individually over the last few years to make sure that they were doing what they needed to do. But this year I wanted to take a deeper look at the policies to make sure that they were actually readable to the community, because when we're telling people and we're advocating, we're saying we have these documents out here, we want them to be useful then, to show people what it is we're actually trying to do. So these edits are really meant to make it more user-friendly for the community to be able to read through it and access it and answer their questions, help them decide if they have further questions, and to clarify some of the things that we have been seeing that we get requests for and that we may not purchase based on, if it's too specialized or if we could point them over to BSU, for example. So we wanted them to actually reflect what we're doing and how we're doing. So those are the changes that are within here. Hopefully you've had a chance to look it over. Brian, I know that you mentioned you had a couple questions. I think one of them was you wondered if in the 5.01, we might want to add in, because we reference in here the Library Bill of Rights and as being 5.01A, and then the Freedom to Read statement being 5.01B. We also have a 5.01C, which is the nature and quality of materials. I think that it makes sense to call out the Library Bill of Rights and the Freedom to Read statement in this policy the way that they are, because we're taking them directly from the American Library Association. So it's basically, to me, it's almost like we're using a style guide and referencing back to where we're taking our source from. And that's why we have not added 5.01C to that list, since that is created by us rather than an outside organization. So that's how I look at it. I'm open to conversation about that if you want. Also open to any other questions.
Anybody have any questions on the policy documents? I had some minor things, and they're not really adding tremendous value. I hate to slow down the wheels of progress by going into look at minor things. I'm inclined to just say, let's go ahead and, if you feel comfortable with the policy as it is, just go ahead and vote on it. Anybody have any questions based on their own review? I didn't find anything major.
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to give some appreciation for the thoughtfulness of how this was worded, and the idea of inclusivity for all. Libraries are supposed to be representative of every single member of the community, and I think that the policy rewording does a really good job stressing that. So my compliments to the rewording, because I know it's really difficult to wordsmith things. So I just appreciate that very much. I thought it was really well done.
I would echo that comment, and also just what was reflecting on the Every Library training that I attended several months back in Spokane, and how they really had focused on, for boards especially, to have a good familiarity and understanding of how collections are developed and maintained, and the way that you pretty explicitly outlined some things in here. I think I almost wonder if it's not a model policy to be able to be shared with other libraries, because I know other smaller rural libraries don't have quite as much support backing, and the way you've laid this out would make it very easy for me to feel comfortable standing up and citing, we have these things in place. This is our guiding documents. This is how and why decisions are made. So thank you for that. And I think it gives me some comfort and backing in thinking about advocacy or other things we might be doing in the future as well.
Okay, there were no changes to the exclusion of materials policy. What were there?
No.
Okay.
No, we tackled that one last year and we made changes.
So what we're voting on is the changes proposed to policy 5.01 alone. The three regulations supporting them, there were some changes, but those don't need a vote. And there were no changes to policy 5.02, exclusion of materials, or the accompanying exhibit 5.02A, correct? All right, can I get a motion to approve the proposed changes for policy 5.01?
I'll move to approve the proposed changes to policy 5.01.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. And that takes us to the next agenda item. We have Sean Wilson, City of Boise Municipal Facility Program Senior Manager, to give us an update on the library construction, some of which we've a little bit of an update we already got from Jessica. Sean?
Yeah, President, board members, just pulling up a presentation. Just a quick status update on what's happening around the library and what's happening at the downtown location. So it's either gonna bore you or excite you about construction stuff. I don't know, but in this particular,
Not working.
I don't think it's working.
Just have to tell me to click.
All right.
Sorry.
No worries. So downtown, as far as our planning and zoning, this is kind of a central gateway, this property that we have into downtown. And there's lots of investments happening around the downtown location. So we have all the stuff happening here at this location, downtown library. We have CCDC and ACHD studies along Capitol Boulevard happening, Wasco Center construction, new offices across the street. And then number 3 there around the memorial, we have other investments in partnership with CCDC related to the mobility through the area, like pedestrian and traffic, whatever. So a lot of stuff happening within the area in this gateway. Oh, it's working now. Cool. So major repair, replacement, MRM, and remodel work within the downtown location. And this one's focused a little more on history, how we got here as we move forward. Presenting a little bit more on, hey, what's happening right now at the library, this is schedule, all the other good stuff. So a lot of prep work to get to the point where we are now. So a little background, in this location, you know, we have about 80,000 square feet, pretty good old structure. We've done size evaluations, condition assessments, ADA analysis, and back late 2020, we started planning, okay, here's how we're going to tackle this older asset and get it up to speed, so keep it, you know, get another 30 years out of it, whatever is needed. Then there was another update in June of 2022, and then some additional concept planning work last year. So last year there was a lot of like, how do we tackle this? What's the sequence of work? How's it all look? And so generally the improvements, just going over them, there's site improvements. We do have it on the radar to fix the site, but more temporary. How do we buy a few years out of it? It's a huge investment to replace and fix the site. So we're buying time to get a little more information within this big strategic planning stuff that Heidi's doing, facilities planning, so the investments that Jessica spoke of. We're trying to give those a little time, buy a little time with it, give the more strategic investment stuff time to evolve before we start putting a lot of money into the site. Building wide improvements, there's a lot of ADA upgrades, restrooms, use services kind of all over. That we're working on plumbing, a lot of 40s plumbing in the building, a lot of leaks. So we're chasing those and trying to replace all the plumbing in the building. Stair railing, a lot of ADA stuff associated with that. That's like staff stair railing, public stair kind of throughout the building. Exterior grout and envelope sounds real boring, but it's kind of, hey, how do we keep the text structure protected, from weather. Level 1 improvements. MRM ADA focusing restrooms, accessibility. There's quite a bit on the 1-story. We did get approval last night through council, interim budget change for $600,000 to do a refresh of these services. So we have some concepts developed for that we're working on. And it's kind of that key goal is maximizing public space. How do we maximize public space available, especially in key areas that are used a lot like these services? And then an auto sorter. And boom, there's the auto sorter, AKA the automated material handling system. And so that construction started. I'll get a little bit more on that later, which should help a lot with circulation. Level 2 and 3 improvements, mainly they're in the core of the building. So the restrooms kind of you can see in the center there. I put my laser, but that doesn't help people. So the kind of the core of the building, there's a lot of ADA stuff, plumbing, everything's within that central chase in the building. So chasing a lot of that stuff throughout level 2 and 3. Level 4, upstairs, there's same thing, there's restrooms, ADA, plumbing, all the stuff at the core of the building. We're also looking at kind of maximizing the space. How do we do it? And so we're looking at knocking down a wall, doing some asbestos abatement to expand kind of the services functions and storage. And then also looking at potentially remodeling the space to get more staff, be able to put staff up there to free up more public space in different locations throughout the library. So that concept's all in progress. And the boring stuff, the roof improvements, both roofs on the 1-story and the 4-story are going to be on the useful life. The parapet there's some life safety stuff. There's just a bunch of stuff up top, but that's kind of the key to protecting the assets, stuff from the top. So all of that is in progress. And so in terms of where we're at with everything, implementation, so that's how we got here. Here's kind of where we're at now. Is the auto sorters in construction, we're contracted, in progress working. Roof and life safety devices are all in construction. We're hoping May to get that work started. YS storage on the 4th floor, wall demo and abatement, that's in construction, scheduled for like late May or June.
Later this week.
It's happening. Main stairwell flooring, we're trying to take care of some other stuff while we're at it. So that main stairwell going up the building, replacing some carpet with something else more functional. Stair railing, like the entire building has stair railing. We did bid that out, got super high bids, so we're trying to look at the timing of that and can we get more competition. Always trying to get best value for the city. That's the bottom line. So we're sitting on that one a little bit. 4-story restrooms, plumbing, fire pump, the entire building. That's like a very large contract. We're hoping to get that out this month, really close. So that should be out on the streets pretty soon. Parking lot minor repairs. We're trying to get out there. You've probably all seen the parking lot. It's not very pleasant, but it's a huge impact to operations. And so we're looking at, okay, can we knock out a chunk here, there, we push it off next year because Waspa Center's also building stuff that disrupt. There's a ton of disruption areas. So we're trying to pair with the best timing to make sure we don't impact operations too much. 4th floor model abatement, we'll be bidding that out in August, and so it's all about the 4th floor. And then 1st floor, use services model, restrooms, ADA, all the stuff on the 1st floor. We have concepts for that, and we're looking to ramp up the design on all of that, see how that fits within the budget, but that's getting really close. So a lot of stuff out there, the downtown. Implementation other, I just wanted to note like a little bit what to expect with encumbered and spending. So as these budgets come in, we're starting to launch these projects. It might look slow on the spending curve as the board's looking at the the reports that are printed on how much have we spent for MRM, MEQ, CIP, all those things. It's a slow ramp, we call it an S-curve, slow ramp. We're starting to reach the steep part of the ramp. So you'll start seeing like, it's not linear through the year. It's like a jump. We spend a lot. And one other thing to note, it's a year over year stuff. So the MRM rolls every year. So probably at the end of the fiscal year, we'll be saying, hey, we need to roll the MRM budget because we have these big contracts in place. So you'll be seeing us communicate that. Like, me or Emily, one of us, hey, we need to roll these budgets. We have all this construction contracts in place. We're still experiencing a lot of construction market challenges. And so like the stair railing is a good example. And so you might see like, hey, we're going to pull back on this, go forward on this. So we're trying to shuffle it around, always just kind of making sure, focusing on best value, mostly get dollars we have budgets. So, operations coordination critical. That's where Emily and public works team are tied and trying to figure out how to minimize impacts. So like one thing we've been talking about, if we start construction on all the plumbing and the restrooms in maybe June or July, how do we direct traffic to make sure folks know restrooms so folks know second floor is open, third floor, use services maybe, I don't know. But we're constantly making sure to minimize impacts to operations. And then external coordination is critical. There's a lot going on within the central gateway of Boise, Wausau Center, everything else. And so we stay in touch with Gavin, Wausau Center, with Biomark, everybody that is impacted parks. They do a lot of work in the Greenbelt here, and a lot of partners. Future fiscal year work plan. So this is just the beginning of the journey. So we have another 2 or 3 years. 1-story plumbing. That's the 4-story. We're chasing the 70-year-old stuff, and we're gonna have to focus on 50-year-old stuff. But you know, it's all very aged. Exterior brick grout. That's kind of a huge project all in its own. Window replacement. There's still a lot of single pane windows, which are going to slowly knock out. Throughout the building, just to improve energy efficiency. There's a lot that goes into window replacement. The entire electrical system for the whole building needs replaced. That's going to be the most boring project, but it's still like $1 million project. It's, you know, that's probably a couple of years out before we get to that one. We're slowly transitioning the building over to entirely LED. There's still a couple pockets within the building. And then the last one, which I mentioned, is a huge project. It's a site replacement. The entire site at some point needs to be rebuilt, and drainage needs to be done with a lot of things. Site. And
so, yeah, I get to talk about communication, and I touched on this when all this started last year, but because there's so much going on, we just want to make sure we're talking to everybody. So we are approaching internal communication, which is our staff, city partners, and board, and then external. So how are we talking to the folks around us? So for internally, we are in a really good rhythm right now. So every Monday morning, I meet with our project manager, our superintendent, and our community engagement person, and just talk about what's actually happening this week. And who do we need to talk to? Do we need to post something on social media? So just what's the best way to communicate with our internal partners and external. I'm meeting with our leaders in the downtown building once a week, just for a 30-minute check-in to make sure everybody knows what's happening. There's the plan, and then there's what's really happening. So try to stay ahead of that. And then we also are sending out a weekly email to the staff on Fridays, just so they know what is coming next week, to try to get ahead of any anxiety about, I don't know, what is this? Why is there this thing in my workspace now? Because that is happening. And then we are meeting with our city folks. I'm including a lot of them on that weekly email, just so everybody knows what's going on, all of our supervisors of the branches, so people are aware of what's happening downtown, as questions will pop up in random places. And then obviously updating the board monthly as part of your packet. So you've got that sheet in there that you can keep track of. And then external, we are meeting pretty regularly. We've got a good cadence. I won't go into all of this. Everybody can read what's going on, but we are touching base either via email, via in person, as needed pretty regularly. And then we've got our construction website, which this is just a snapshot here. that we're working really hard to keep as updated as possible and putting QR codes on anything that holds still. So folks can just see in real time what's going on, talking about parking, all sorts of things, so people in the community kind of stay ahead of it. So I think we're managing communication well. There's a lot of moving parts, but we have a pretty good cadence right now to stay on top of what's going on, and then lots and lots of different ways to share it.
Any questions, board?
Sean, what event or milestone triggers the encumbrance of funds?
Budget approval. Well, no, take that back. It's when you go into a contract and you sign a purchase order, that encumbers a fund.
Okay. That's clear. The number of encumbrances doesn't mean it's going to be expensed in the budgetary period, though, right? It means the milestone you just cited, the signing of a purchase order or a contract triggers the encumbrance, but that could still spill over in the next fiscal year.
Yeah, President Board members, yes, that's accurate. Yeah.
Okay.
But the encumbrance is not directly correlated with the spending curve.
All right. You have any guess what the expense will be on capital projects by the end of the year?
President, board members, in this particular one, there's multiple funding sources, and we're trying to get a better way to kind of status that, present it. But we have a lot of the major repair and maintenance, the MRM is a funding source. We have capital improvement projects, CIP is a funding source. We have major equipment, MEQ is a funding source. And then I have an outside ADA funding source. And so it's not an easy answer, I apologize. No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for giving us the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I should ask any other questions before we end with Sean.
Brian, I just wanted to say a quick thank you too. I know we'd asked about kind of what the communication was on these projects, and it's really helpful to know, again, almost like the outward facing piece, same with the collection information. This level of information is super helpful for me when we go and communicate out, as well as when we go to approve things, just so we have the context and understanding of the full picture. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's move on to new business. And the first item is the fiscal year 23 Ada Community Library Annexation Compensation Agreement. To address this is Library Director Jessica Dorr. And Jessica, we want to start off with a brief explanation of what this is for everybody.
I will refer everyone, thank you, to the memo that we put together in the packet, page 23, and then the actual agreement on page 24, so you can look at it. And actually, this references back to the earlier conversation about the area between Boise and Ada and how over time that boundary has been kind of complicated. We historically have the city of Boise over time has incorporated or annexed land that was unincorporated West Ada land, and we've in that pulled in taxpayers that were previously paying money into the Ada Community Library. So this is a reimbursement that we make on an annual basis for library services in those areas where we have pulled in, like Boise taxpayer, like Boise people are going to these libraries that are run by Ada Community Library because we've pulled in that tax base, so we reimburse them on an annual basis for this.
Okay. Any questions on what the purpose of this is? These are negotiated annually, and I think the document which we're approving to sign is for fiscal year 3, approving the billing, and also that the agreement will carry on for the next year. Is that right? Or is this just for 2023?
No, we will be bringing it back to you for 24, correct?
Okay, all right. So we need a motion to approve the Ada Community Library Annexation Compensation Agreement payment.
I'll move to approve the 2023 annexation compensation agreement between the Ada Community Library and Boise City.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Aye, sorry, I just didn't get I was on mute.
Okay, thank you. All right, motion carried. And the selection of a trustee to review payment vouchers for next month. Nikki, are you available and willing?
Yes.
Okay. And the next meeting date is on Wednesday, June 14th, 2023. And I just noted from the system statistics that we're on pace at the halfway point in the year to have 2.25 million items in circulation. So this is the biggest number by a significant margin compared to what Tully shared with us for the past year's data. And patron visits are on track to hit 600,000. Again, this would be a new record. So keep up the good work, library staff. Things are working well. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
All right, meeting adjourned.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.